Hello everyone and welcome to a new video dedicated to our beloved Snoopy and the world of Peanuts. Charlie Brown and Shermie are together again for a dialogue that, as is often the case in early Peanut strips, develops around a simple concept, but with a conclusion that completely reverses the initial perspective. It is Christmas Day, and Schulz offers a reflection on the transformation of society and traditions, entrusting it to Charlie Brown's voice and Shermie's punchline. Once upon a time, families moved through forests and countryside to visit loved ones. While now everything has changed, life has urbanized and family relationships have adapted to a new reality. This strip is a perfect example of Schulz's ability to portray everyday life with irony and a hint of melancholy. Shermie's joke completely dismantles Charlie Brown's nostalgic tone, showing how physical distances are now reduced, but leaving room for question. Is this change really good? Charlie Brown's grandmother lives in the same building, only one floor away, yet it seems that the connection to the past and to traditions has somehow faded. Visually, the strip is essential and linear, as was Schulz's style during this period. The two characters walk side by side, with a barely noticeable background, as if to emphasize that the real focus of the strip is not the landscape, but the concept being expressed in the dialogue. Despite the simplicity of the stroke, there is great attention to detail, such as Charlie Brown's hat and Shermie's thoughtful expression, which emphasize the difference between the two attitudes. The former is nostalgic and reflective. The latter is direct and down-to-earth. The publication of this strip at Christmas 1950 takes on a special significance. It is a day when families come together, but Schulz shows us how even this tradition is changing. Today we can consider this issue even more relevant. Physical distances have been broken down, not only by transportation but also by technology, yet the sense of emotional closeness is still an open subject. In the first vignette, we see Charlie Brown and Shermie walking side by side along the sidewalk. Charlie Brown's face is turned slightly forward, suggesting that he is reflecting on what Shermie is about to say. His gaze is absorbed, as if he is thinking back to a distant time, while Charlie Brown, with his distinctive hat, seems to be listening with interest but also with a hint of skepticism. The clothing of both is plain, but Charlie Brown's hat sets him apart and gives him a slightly more urbane air, as if to emphasize a difference in personality between the two. The dialogue begins with Shermie stating that it was different in the old days. This phrase is a typical nostalgic introduction, often used by adults to emphasize changes in the world. Interestingly, Schulz attributes this kind of reflection to a child, reversing the idea that only the elderly can feel nostalgia for the past. The contrast between the character's age and the depth of his thinking adds an ironic element to the scene and highlights one of the Peanuts' characteristic aspects, the ability to mix childlike levity and adult complexity in a subtle and effective way. In the second vignette, Shermie continues with her speech and refers to a very traditional scene. People used to go through the woods to go to their grandmother's house. This image immediately evokes the fairy tale of Little Red Riding Hood, which in Western culture is one of the most iconic tales related to the woods and the figure of the grandmother. The fact that Shermie mentions this detail suggests that until recently, it was common to travel roads surrounded by nature to visit relatives. This simple but effective observation reflects one of the recurring themes in the Peanut strips, the comparison between the past and the present, between nostalgia for a time gone by and the contemporary reality in which Charlie Brown and his friends live. In the context of the 1950s, the time when Schulz drew this strip, urbanization and social changes were transforming the landscape and daily routines. The journey through the woods, once necessary to reach a relative's home, was increasingly becoming a thing of the past, replaced by paved roads and faster means of transportation. Schulz is offering us a vision of a past that is long gone but was once the norm. This element of nostalgia is accentuated by the composition of the vignette. The background is slightly more detailed than the others, with some lines on the ground suggesting a path. These small visual details emphasize the concept of a journey, a path that was once part of everyday life but now seems to belong to a different era. It is a subtle but incisive way in which Schulz manages to tell not only a joke, but also a cultural and social change. In the third vignette, Charlie Brown adds a crucial element to the conversation, but no more. The suspension at the end of the sentence creates an effect of anticipation and suggests an impending turn, a moment when the tone of the conversation seems to change direction. This small linguistic detail is crucial in building narrative tension, setting the stage for the punchline. Schulz, with his mastery of comic timing, uses the rhythm of the vignettes to lead the reader to an unexpected conclusion. In this scene, body language plays a key role. Both characters seem momentarily motionless, almost as if they're suspending their breath while waiting for the dialogue to close. Shermy is slightly turned toward Charlie Brown, his stance suggesting attention and curiosity, as if he is trying to anticipate what will be said next. This posture reinforces the effect of the coming joke, amplifying the contrast between the moment of suspension and the final resolution of the strip. Charlie Brown's final line is not just an ironic contrast, but a real reversal of the emotional tone of the strip. Up to that point, Shermy had constructed a nostalgic and almost poetic image of life in the past, evoking the beauty of a trip through the woods to visit his grandmother. This romantic vision of the past is abruptly demolished by Charlie Brown's revelation, which brings everything back to contemporary reality with a simple observation: his grandmother lives in the very apartment above him. Schulz uses this contrast to highlight the change in society, emphasizing how modernization has made everyday experiences more immediate and less adventurous. Moreover, the joke works because it completely subverts the expectation created in the reader, turning an evocative tale into a moment of dry, disillusioned humor. This is a perfect example of the way Schulz played with language and concepts, creating a refined and clever humor that went beyond the simple joke, subtly revealing the transformations in society and the way children relate to them. Analyzing this strip in the larger context of the Peanuts, we can see that the theme of change and nostalgia is recurrent in Schulz's works. Shermy, in particular, is often the character who brings up these feelings, while the other children bring him back to reality with more direct comments. Although he is a less present character in future strips, at this early stage of the Peanuts, he represents the more reflective point of view, in contrast to Charlie Brown's practical, down-to-earth attitude. The setting of the strip also suggests a change in American society in the 1950s. With urbanization and the development of cities, the closeness between generations increased in terms of space, but not necessarily in terms of emotional connection. Christmas, once a symbol of long journeys to reach family members, here becomes a holiday celebrated in the same building, but with a possible sense of loss to the traditions of the past. Schulz does not explicitly tell us whether this change is positive or negative, but leaves room for the reader to reflect. This strip, with its simplicity and message, is a perfect example of how Schulz was able to condense deep themes into a few cartoons, while always maintaining a light and accessible style. A small masterpiece of irony and social observation, it still manages to make people smile and think today.
If you enjoyed yourself, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the little bell to stay updated, and see you next, friends.